I had always been wary of our basement. Even as a child, I had sensed something not quite right about that dim, foreboding space beneath our home. It was a place where the shadows seemed to stretch and coil, where the air was thick with a musty, ancient scent. My family had lived in that house for generations, and the stories about the basement had become a part of our family's lore. Tales of strange noises, flickering lights, and objects moving on their own had haunted us for as long as I could remember. But it wasn't until my grandmother's passing that I would come face to face with the dark secrets hidden below. The day we gathered to sort through my grandmother's belongings was overcast, the air heavy with the scent of rain. As we ventured down the creaking wooden steps, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching us, lurking in the shadows. The basement was a labyrinth of forgotten relics, ancient furniture draped in dusty sheets, boxes of photographs, and a musty collection of old books. It was as if time itself had forgotten this place, leaving it untouched for centuries. My grandmother had always spoken in hushed tones about a presence that dwelled within the basement. She had claimed to have seen apparitions, heard whispers in the dark, and felt cold fingers trailing her skin. I had brushed off her stories as the ramblings of an elderly woman, but as I descended further into the depths, I could feel her presence all around me. The air grew colder, and a sensation of dread settled in the pit of my stomach. It was as if the very walls were pressing in on me, urging me to leave. But I couldn't. I was determined to uncover the truth that my grandmother had hinted at for so long. As I sifted through the boxes of photographs, I began to notice something unsettling. In each photograph, there was a shadowy figure lurking in the background. It was a dark, indistinct shape, its presence unmistakable and malevolent. I couldn't help but wonder if this was the entity my grandmother had spoken of. My search led me to a hidden compartment in the basement floor. It was a small, forgotten space, obscured by an old rug that had been laid over it. As I pulled the rug aside, I uncovered a trapdoor that led to an even deeper, more foreboding level of the basement. The trapdoor opened with a heavy creak, revealing a set of stone steps that descended into a subterranean abyss. The air was even colder down there, and the scent of dampness and decay was overpowering. It was as if I had entered another world, one that had been untouched by time. As I ventured further into the darkness, I could feel a presence drawing me deeper into the depths. The walls seemed to close in on me, and the shadows danced, taking on forms that I couldn't quite make out. It was a place of nightmarish visions and eerie sounds, where the past and present blurred together in a disorienting dance. I pressed on, determined to uncover the truth. It was then that I stumbled upon a room that would forever haunt my nightmares. The walls were covered in strange symbols and sigils, and in the center of the room there was an old, decrepit well. The well seemed to radiate malevolence, its dark, bottomless depths an abyss that called to me. I could feel an unseen force compelling me to approach, to peer into the darkness, and uncover the secrets hidden within. As I peered into the well, I was met with a vision of horror. The shadows seemed to come to life, twisting and writhing in the depths below. The scent of decay was overwhelming, and I could feel a presence all around me, a presence that was ancient and malevolent. It was then that I understood the truth. The basement was not just a place of dark secrets. It was a gateway to a realm beyond our understanding. The entity that dwelled within had been imprisoned for centuries, and it hungered for release. As I turned to leave, I could feel the entity's malevolence closing in on me. The shadows seemed to reach out, their cold fingers tracing my skin. It was as if the very walls of the basement were alive, and they were determined to keep their secrets hidden. I fled from the basement, the trapdoor slamming shut behind me, and I could feel the presence receding into the depths, but I knew that it would never truly be gone. The entity would forever haunt the basement, a malevolent force that would wait for the next unsuspecting soul to uncover its secrets. I could never forget the horrors I had witnessed in the basement, the visions, the whispers, and the malevolence that clung to me. It was a place of darkness and dread, a place where the past and the present merged into a nightmarish reality. The decrepit shed loomed before me, its time-worn boards and rusted hinges telling a tale of long-forgotten days. I had heard whispers of its haunting, stories of shadowy figures and eerie moans that sent shivers down my spine. Yet my curiosity outweighed my fear, and I found myself drawn to the ominous structure. As I approached, the scent of damp wood and decay filled my nostrils, like the breath of a place forgotten by time. The hinges groaned in protest as I slowly pushed the door open. It was as if the very shed exhaled a heavy, long-held breath. Inside, the dim, dusty air clung to me, and the musty odor of abandonment hung thick. The light filtered through grimy windows, casting elongated shadows that danced eerily across the cluttered floor. Rusted tools, broken furniture, and cobweb-covered boxes littered the shed, creating a surreal, labyrinthine path. I had ventured farther than I should have when I saw it, a peculiar, ornate mirror, its frame adorned with grotesque figures and thorn-like patterns. As I gazed at my reflection, a subtle chill crept up my spine. The air grew heavy, and the world within the mirror began to distort, melting into an unsettling abyss. In that otherworldly realm, grotesque figures writhed and danced in the shadows. The scent of decay grew stronger, and an icy hand seemed to brush my shoulder. Panic gripped me, and I stumbled back, escaping the mirror's thrall. But as I turned to leave, the world had shifted. The door I had entered through had crumbled into a pile of dust. The shed had transformed into a claustrophobic nightmare. The oppressive darkness and eerie whispers encroached upon me, like the suffocating embrace of some malevolent force. The shadows around me seemed to move, as though they were alive and watching my every move. Faint, eerie laughter echoed from unseen corners, and I knew that I was not alone. The smell of decay clung to the air, and the whispers grew louder, like 1,000 distant voices. Panic threatened to overwhelm me, and every attempt to find the exit only led me deeper into the labyrinthine nightmare. The shed seemed to defy the laws of reality, its very architecture shifting and changing. Time became a vague concept as I navigated the surreal space. With each twist and turn, the walls seemed to close in, and the malevolent entities became more insistent. I could feel their presence, a menacing chorus that surrounded me. It was as if they were trying to communicate with me, to convey their agony and torment. Deeper I ventured, until I stumbled upon a chamber that held a grotesque secret. An ancient rusted iron door stood before me, covered in cryptic symbols and sigils. The whispers of the malevolent entities became an agonized cacophony, as if they were desperate to keep the door sealed. With trembling hands, I pushed the door open and revealed a yawning abyss. The scent of decay became overwhelming, and the whispers of the entities surrounded me in a deafening chorus. I realized that I had uncovered the darkest secret of the shed, an entrance to a realm of eternal suffering. I stepped across the threshold into the abyss, and the malevolent entities closed in on me. The shadows seemed to reach out, their frigid touch sending shivers through my body. But as despair threatened to consume me, a surge of determination rose within. With every ounce of my strength, I fought my way back through the iron door. It closed behind me, sealing off the darkness, and the shed began to shake and tremble. The anguished wails of the malevolent entities filled the air. The shed collapsed in on itself, and I was flung free, landing in the clearing outside. The scent of damp earth and freedom filled my senses as I gasped for breath. The moon hung in the sky, casting a silvery light over the scene. I had escaped the malevolent grip of the haunted shed, but the horrors I had witnessed would stay with me. Some secrets are better left buried, and the malevolent entities that dwell in the shadows should never be awakened. From the moment I moved into that old creaking house, I could sense the cellar's presence. It was a brooding, shadowy specter that seemed to seep through the very foundation, filling the air with an oppressive sense of dread. Every time I descended the wooden steps into its abyss, the smell of damp earth and decay hung heavy in the air. The cellar was not like any other I had encountered. Its dark corners and twisted, narrow passageways felt like a labyrinth of despair. The walls were adorned with unsettling symbols and forgotten relics, and the air was thick with the memories of those who had ventured into its depths. At first, I paid little heed to the cellar's ominous reputation. It was just another room, albeit one that I rarely visited. But as the days turned into weeks, I began to notice something unsettling. Strange, ethereal whispers would drift up from the depths, like the faintest echoes of tortured souls. The cellar seemed to beckon me, to draw me into its dark embrace. I couldn't resist the pull, and one night I descended into the depths, a dim lantern in hand. The moment I reached the cellar floor, I felt a shiver race down my spine. The lantern cast flickering shadows on the walls, revealing a space that seemed to stretch on forever. It was as if the cellar were a realm unto itself, a place untouched by the passage of time. The air was heavy with a sense of foreboding, and the smell of decay was overpowering. As I ventured deeper into the cellar, I stumbled upon a chamber that held an ancient, ornate mirror. Its frame was adorned with grotesque figures and twisted, thorn-like patterns. I couldn't tear my gaze away from it, as if it held the key to the cellar's mysteries. In the reflection, I saw not my own visage, but a nightmarish vision. The world beyond the mirror was a place of twisted, eldritch horrors, a realm where reality itself seemed to warp and unravel. It was a place where the shadows moved with a sinister purpose, where grotesque figures danced in the darkness. I tore my gaze away from the mirror, my heart pounding with fear. The whispers that had been mere echoes before were now a cacophony of spectral voices, each one a lament from a tormented soul. It was as if the cellar had become a gateway to the afterlife, a place where the spirits of the departed lingered in eternal torment. I knew I had to leave the cellar, to escape its malevolent grasp, but as I turned to ascend the stairs, I found the way blocked by a wall of impenetrable darkness. Panic surged within me, and I realized that I was trapped in this nightmarish abyss. The shadows seemed to close in on me, their frigid fingers reaching out to touch my skin. The whispers grew louder, and I could hear the spectral voices pleading for release, for a way to escape their eternal suffering. I was not alone in the cellar. I was surrounded by the restless souls of the departed. I pressed on, determined to find a way out of the cellar's clutches. But as I ventured deeper into its depths, I encountered more unsettling sights. The walls were adorned with grotesque paintings that seemed to come to life, their eerie eyes following my every move. The cellar seemed to shift and change, its very architecture defying the laws of reality. I would enter a narrow passage only to find it expanding into a vast chamber, its walls adorned with more of the haunting paintings. It was as if the cellar itself were a sentient, malevolent force, determined to ensnare those who dared to enter. I pressed on, my lantern flickering in the oppressive darkness. The cellar seemed to lead me deeper into the heart of its malevolence, and I knew that I was edging closer to a truth that I might not be able to bear. Finally, I stumbled upon a chamber that held the key to the cellar's mysteries. In the center of the room, there was an ancient, rusted iron door. It was covered in strange symbols and sigils, and I could feel an otherworldly presence emanating from beyond it. As I approached the door, I could hear the whispers of the departed growing louder, their voices a haunting cacophony. It was as if they were trying to prevent me from opening the door, to keep the cellar's secrets hidden. With a trembling hand, I pushed open the door, revealing a sight that would forever haunt my nightmares. Beyond the door was a yawning abyss, a chasm of endless darkness. The smell of decay was overpowering, and the whispers of the departed surrounded me, their voices a chorus of torment. The shadows seemed to reach out, their frigid fingers tracing my skin. I was not alone in the cellar. I was surrounded by the restless souls of the departed, and I knew that I would never escape their torment. The cellar had become my eternal prison, a place of darkness and despair,